And before we get started rolling, I will say one thing. I have been told repeatedly over the last 2 weeks I cannot cross over the railroad bridge today to the opposite side of the railroad cut, so you have to use your imagination a great deal this morning or this afternoon, whatever time it is. I'm not sure anymore. So any questions? Wow, I've stumped them already. All right. You're amazing.
What kind of squirrel is it?
What? You asked a question on a squirrel? You go move to the back. At least it's cool right here.
You're heading sort of that way? Is that?
We're going to be crossing over the Chambersburg Pike at a certain point. We'll be walking on the south side of the railroad cut, both to the east and west. The eastern side of the cut, you can see some things, but you can't see that much. The things I really need to see are on the other side of that bridge, but I can't go over there today. Absolutely under no conditions are you to climb into the railroad cut. That is private property. Be charged with trespassing by the railroad itself. And there's actually been people killed in the railroad cut. I remember about maybe 10 years ago. It was at the Appalachian Brewing Company when it was up here, when the hotel was up there, and somebody was walking the railroad cut, got hit by a train, and they had a very painful death in the hospital. And unfortunately, because oh, you have a question?
No, I'm just waving this too.
Here, I'll relay it. We'll be like a signal station. I'm like a signal station.
You got to remember, this is a 2-year reunion.
I guess the railroad has done this. They've grown some artificial vegetation, well, not artificial vegetation, but vegetative barriers. It's going to make it kind of hard to see anything on the north side of the railroad cut. So that's the limitations I'm kind of working under today. So any questions? That only took up 3 minutes of your time right there, what I just said.
How long is the tour of?
How long is the what?
This tour.
This is probably, because of the heat today, it's probably not going to run more than an hour. Plus, we're not walking as far as I had originally planned, so that's going to cut into a great deal of time as well. One thing, you're watching these things on PCN, and they can verify this for you, you never see how long it takes to walk from each stop. What?
We want to shoot somebody on Meredith, I guess.
Okay. Checking my cell phone here. Years ago, actually it was 2014, I had a mini stroke and Memorial Day weekend, got out of the hospital, was okay, and I was the first program up on July 1st. It was actually this program, but a slightly shorter program. And I always turn off my phone before I do a program. This is the one time I didn't do my turn off my phone. And I'm on PCN talking, and my phone rings. And I reach in my pocket while I'm talking and turn the ringer off. At least I thought I did. I'm still on PCN, and the phone rings again. And I reach down in my pocket, turn it off. I'm still on PCN, the phone rings again, I reach down in my pocket, turn my phone off, and finally finish talking, we're moving to the next stop. I pull out my phone, look at my phone, that idiot Matt Atkinson. And then other people, Angie Atkinson also called me. Somebody we had changed the starting location of the program like 3 weeks earlier, but somebody who was, I guess, up on the chairman of the board of the foundation or something like that, went out to the old place where we were starting, didn't know about the new location, was calling the visitor saying that I wasn't out there when I was standing right here. And so that led people to think that I was dead. They say a law enforcement officer out to my house, no, he's not here, his car is not here. So they kept calling me. And finally they remembered that Jared Frederick was out here as well. So they called Jared Frederick up, and yeah, he's out here. He's talking on PCN right now. So I get back to the building, they said, oh, we thought you were dead. And I said, if I'm dead, at least let me finish the program first. You can call me after I'm dead, I'll still be dead. So I verified with Angie Atkins this morning. She actually looked at me. I said, I am not dead. You're not looking at Casper the Friendly Ghost. So you're all my witnesses that I'm not dead right now. Although maybe at the end of the program you'll wish I was dead. So that killed another 2 minutes. What?
How's your air conditioning doing this year?
My air conditioning is doing a lot better this year than it was last year. Oh, yeah. NCO voice.
It really isn't much different.
Okay, I'll turn it off then. I was hoping to get, we needed a fuzz pedal or something like that, or a phase shifter. That would be cool. But they don't have that stuff for this stuff. I'll keep it on anyway. Good morning. My name is John Nicholas. Welcome to Gettysburg National Military Park, and welcome to the 159th anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg, July 1st, 1863. This morning it's kind of hot out here. I'm going to start the program in the shade. We'll be out in the sun for a great deal. It's already about 93, 94 degrees out here. It's supposed to get a little bit hotter as we go on. There's certain places where I won't be able to go to today, like on the north side of the railroad cut. That's going to kind of limit some of the things you're going to be able to see today. The American Civil War, somebody once figured this out. I don't know who did. Maybe they had a clicker or something. Somebody figured out there were 10,000 battles during the Civil War. Almost all of them, nobody remembers. Nobody remembers Glendale. You don't remember the North Anna campaign. They don't remember Chickahominy Swamp. They don't remember a lot of things. Gettysburg should have been one of those battles. This should be a battle between a few hundred, a few thousand soldiers that nobody remembers. Instead, things will spin out of control very quickly. Summer of 1863, the war's been going on for 2 years now, and neither side is really winning, neither side is really losing, but it's painful for both sides. The very first income tax in American history started in the Union States, costing the taxpayer $1 million a day. There's huge loss of life. There's an growing anti-war movement out in the Midwestern states. But the Confederacy, things are far worse. In April of 1862, the Confederacy starts the very first draft in American history. At first, they're drafting 18 to 35-year-old men. About 5 months later, they're going to be drafting 18 to 45-year-olds. In February of 1864, they'll be drafting 17 to 50-year-old men. In the last couple of months, where they're drafting 13-year-old boys all the way up to 60-year-old men. So some of these guys' time is coming up. Because there's so many men in the Army, because the Confederacy is cash poor, because they're relying on agriculture, and because the infrastructure is very poor, people in the South are starving. There's no men to farm the farms. There's women leading food rights in Richmond, Petersburg, Virginia, Wilmington, North Carolina, Moby, Atlanta, Alabama, even as far west as Waco, Texas. So people are pretty unhappy. Both sides are basically winning and losing the war at the same time. In the Western Theater, west of the Appalachian Mountains, along the Mississippi River Valley, the Confederates had lost the important border states of Maryland, Kentucky, and Tennessee. They lost much of the Mississippi River Valley. They lost New Orleans, the largest city in the entire Confederacy. And now a Union Army under a little-known general by the name of U.S. Grant is laying siege to Vicksburg, Mississippi. If Vicksburg falls, the Confederacy will be split in two, because Grant will control the entire length of the Mississippi River. But out here in the east, last 13 months, this man, General Robert E. Lee, commander of the Army of Northern Virginia, one of 24 Confederate armies, Lee's been winning a lot of battles out here in the east. At the same time, Lee is losing a lot of men. Every time Lee wins a battle, he loses men. In May of 1863, he wins perhaps his greatest victory, the Battle of Chancellorsville. At Chancellorsville, Lee's army had, actually the Union Army of the Potomac, Grant's rather Lee's adversaries, the Army of the Potomac lost 17,000 men. That was only 12% of their army. Lee at Chancellorsville had lost 13,000 soldiers. That was 1/5 of his army. So Lee realized every time he fights a battle, he's running out of time. Eventually, he might not have an army left to fight with. Also, he's got a more immediate problem. His army is starving. The infrastructure is breaking down. He's been in the central Virginia area now, around Fredericksburg, Virginia, for the last 6 months. No grass, had fodder for his horses and mules, so they're starving. The single-track railroad running up from Richmond, only 50 miles away, is constantly breaking down. It's mounted down to about 4 ounces of bacon a day. That much meat. If your soldier has to march 10 or 20 or 30 miles a day, that is enough protein to do it for you. So he realizes he can't stay where he is any longer. He's already meeting with the government down in Richmond, Virginia, to figure out what to do next. They want to siphon off some of Lee's army, some out west of Mississippi. He believes the siege of Vicksburg out there, at least to send them to the other Confederate army, the Army of Tennessee, to face off against the Army of the Cumberland in Middle Tennessee. He's not in favor of that at all. He knows that enlistments, the Army of the Potomac, are going to be running out in the next 30 days. By the end of May, there'll be 30,000 enlistments, and the Army of the Potomac will be up. So the army will be, his enemy's army will be smaller. Also, Lee's getting reinforcements up from the Carolinas, from even Florida, and from South Carolina. And he wants to invade the North. He can't stay where he is any longer. He's going to have to retreat closer to Richmond. So he'd be back from rally to more desertions in the army, or he's going to have to go somewhere else. He decides he wants to go somewhere else. That somewhere else is Pennsylvania. Lee and his army wants to do some grocery shopping, and they're going to do it in a big way. The Confederate Army goes back to Virginia. You have to imagine what this is going to look like. They're going to take with them 26,000 head of cattle, 24,000 hogs, 22,000 sheep, thousands of horses, mules, barrels of flour, cornmeal, sauerkraut. Why sauerkraut? Why do they want to take sauerkraut back to Virginia?
No scurvy.
No scurvy, that's right. No scurvy. They'll take back harnesses, saddles, clothing. Everything the Confederate Army needs is up here. It's a big giant Walmart to them. The Confederate Army goes back from Pennsylvania down back to Virginia. Just stretch their wagon trains from end to end. It's going to stretch for 57 miles. That's more than the distance between here and Baltimore. You ever been behind a 57-mile checkout line before? Take you a while to get through that. But the big reason, while he wants to invade the North, he needs to fight a battle on northern soil that he hopes will influence the newspapers in the East, influence public opinion in the East, and bring about the end of the war. He realizes he's probably not going to be able to stop Grant from capturing Vicksburg. He wants to fight a big battle on northern soil. So in early June, his army leaves his camp from Fredericksburg, Virginia, begins marching into the Shenandoah Valley, then north up into the Susquehanna and Cumberland Valleys. Things are going pretty well. He's moving over here very quickly. He's got a 10-day head start on the Union Army. The reason why he's got a 10-day head start is because of this man right here, Jeb Stuart. Jeb Stuart has been protecting the flank of the Confederate Army. He's been guarding the passes of the Blue Ridge Mountains, preventing the Union cavalry from finding out where Lee's army is. Joe Hooker, the commanding Army of the Potomac, won't know until June 15th that Lee's army is on the move, and he finds out by Lee capturing, or rather one of his corps commanders capturing Winchester, Virginia. So now the Union Army is moving north. On June 23rd, Lee will send Jeb Stuart some orders. He tells Stuart, if the Union Army is not moving, move back with the rest of the army, protect the flank of the army. We're going to move up into Pennsylvania. You're going to cross the Potomac River at Shepherdstown, now West Virginia. If they are moving, move around them to the east, get between them and Washington, D.C., link up with the army when you get up to Pennsylvania. Stuart has been told by one of his scouts, John Mosby, that there is a way through around the Union Army. And all Stuart has to do is meet John Mosby with his cavalry on the Gum Springs Road on June 25th. On June 25th, Stuart starts moving to meet up, link up with John Mosby. But what he doesn't know is suddenly the Union Army is moving. Now the Union Second Corps is blocking his way. So he'll never make that rendezvous with John Mosby. He has to keep moving farther and farther to the east. Now at this point it's too late to go back and rejoin Lee's army. He'll be trailing them for 60 miles the entire time. And so he decides to keep moving east, finally cross the Potomac River. He won't link up with Lee's army until July 2nd, 1863. So meanwhile, Lee is moving up through the Shenandoah Valley up here in Pennsylvania. And now Lee does have cavalry with him. A lot of people think that Stuart has left Lee's line. That's not true at all. Lee does have cavalry with him. When Stuart left, he took his 3 best brigades with him. He left 2 more brigades behind with Lee's army, and they're guarding the Blue Ridge passes, preventing the Union cavalry from getting a look at Lee's army. And those 2 brigades are commanded by 2 of Jeb Stuart's enemies, William Grumble Jones and Brigadier General Beverly Robertson. Robertson outranks Jones, and neither of them are, Stuart hates both of those guys, but Grumble Jones, Stuart says, is the best reconnaissance officer in the entire army. But Robertson outranks Jones, and they're in the Blue Ridge passes. Their orders are to, when the Union Army leaves your front, come back and join the army. Well, the Union Army's left their front for 2 days. They're watching empty space. Jones knows this, but Robertson's not moving, and Lee forgets they're down here. Lee does have other cavalry assets with him as well. He's not using them very well. He won't remember until July 1st that he's got 2 brigades down. Where are they? By the time they get here, the battle's already over. So Lee's army is traveling up here blind. When on June 28th, but things are going pretty well so far. He's collecting all the supplies. His army is spread out over 60 miles over central Pennsylvania. He's collecting all that food, all the supplies, everything he needs is up here. And on June 28th, around 10 p.m., Robert Lee will get 2 pieces of bad news. First piece of bad news is the Union Army has a new commander. This man, right here, John Popel, George Meade. George Meade will take command of the Union Army on June 28th. When he's woke up at 3 a.m. on the morning of June 28th, he thinks he commands the 5th Corps at this point. He thinks he's being arrested for something he said in the newspapers. Instead, he's told, no, you're not being arrested. You're now in command of the Army of the Potomac. And Meade says, I do not want that job. There must be some mistake. Meade wants to be an Army commander, but not this particular Union Army, because commanding this particular Army is a good way to lose your job as a general. And there's already been 4 previous commanders of the Army of the Potomac. But Meade will do pretty well up here. And he's been told, you're told by President Lincoln you are ordered to take command of the Army, so Meade will write his wife, I've already been sentenced in the home. But Meade will do pretty well up here at Gettysburg to command the Army all the way to the end of the Civil War. At the end of the Civil War, George Meade is the 3rd senior general of the United States Army. And somebody that Robert E. Lee knows. He served in the old pre-war Army out in Mexico. Served at low levels of command of the Army of the Potomac, so he's fought against George Meade before. He will save General Meade. He'll make no mistake on his own front and take advantage of any mistake he might possibly make. So Lee knows he's facing a new tougher opponent. The other piece of bad news that Lee gets, he thought the Army was still down in Virginia, south of the Potomac River. But actually finds out they're only about 40 miles away around Frederick, Maryland. They're moving up here very quickly. And Lee's army is spread out in a big arc over 60 miles wide. If he doesn't bring his army together soon, he'll be destroyed one piece at a time. So Lee looks on a map of South Central Pennsylvania, finds out all of his troops are on a road to lead back to a transportation hub. This place, Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Sends orders out to his generals. We're going to concentrate the army at Gettysburg. Those are the orders. We're bringing the army to Gettysburg until we get there. Absolutely under no conditions are you just bring on a battle with the enemy until the entire army is at Gettysburg. But things are going to spin out of control. We're going to move up to our next stop and talk about how things will spin out of control on June 30th and July 1st. So on June 30th, things are changing. George Meade has been receiving very good intelligence reports from his Bureau of Military Information, also from his cavalry as well. They've been out in front of the Army trying to find out where the Confederates are. And in the front is General John Buford, commanding a cavalry division of Meade's army. He's in front of the left wing of the army. I'll talk about the left wing in just a minute. And Buford's providing very good intelligence back to George Meade. On June 30th, Meade knows he's already forced the Army of the Potomac to pull back from Harrisburg. And now he's sent out orders to his army to start making shorter marches. He doesn't want to wear out his troops because he's expecting to fight a battle next 48 to maybe 24 hours. And on June 30th, Jeb Stuart will ride into Hanover, Pennsylvania. He doesn't realize it, but he's only about maybe 20 to 25 miles away from the rest of the Confederate Army out here towards Cashtown. He'll run in Union cavalry under Judson Kilpatrick out there, be fighting all day long, and Stuart will break off contact with Judson Kilpatrick's cavalry, and he's heard that the Confederate Army is out towards York, Pennsylvania, so he's riding off in that direction. Now, while this fight was going on in Hanover, Jubal Early's division from Lee's army is marching back from York. They're about 4 miles away from Hanover near Berlin, Pennsylvania. And they can hear gunfire, but they're not sure where it's coming from. For some reason, Jubal Early doesn't bother to find out where that gunfire is coming from. He had to know. It was Jeb Stuart out there. Who else can be shooting guns at other people if it's not Confederate cavalry out there? He makes no attempt to contact Stuart's cavalry.
They can't hear you.
Yeah, I'll turn it back up again. He makes no attempt to contact Stuart's cavalry, and Stuart take off to the east towards York, Pennsylvania. Meanwhile, coming down the Chambersburg Pike from Cashtown, about 6 miles away, is a North Carolina brigade commanded by this man, Johnston Pettigrew. Pettigrew is new to the Army of the Potomac. He's an experienced brigade commander, but his brigade has very little combat experience doing fighting down in North Carolina. He is new to the Army of Northern Virginia. This is the big leagues, the major leagues. And on June 30th, Pettigrew is told to take your brigade by his division commander, Henry Heath, who we'll get to in just a minute, and go to Gettysburg, collect shoes and anything else they can find. Shoes and anything else they can find. Heath will change the story over the years to just shoes to anything else they can find. So they're coming over here, and the orders are not to start a fight. They're coming down the Chambersburg Pike out here. And they reach about where the McPherson's barn is right here, and suddenly Pettigrew sees Union cavalry out here belonging to John Buford, who's ridden into Gettysburg around 10:30 that morning. And he orders her not to start a fight. So Pettigrew stops, goes back around, back to Cashtown. Reports to his boss, General Henry Heath, his division commander. Show him Heath. And Heath will say, "You guy, you don't know what you're talking about. There can't be a Union army, and Union soldiers can't be in Gettysburg, can't be any cavalry there. You're just looking at militia." But Pettigrew is insistent that this is actually Union troops in Gettysburg. But Heath doesn't believe them. While they're talking, the Corps commander, Lieutenant General A.P. Hill, will ride up. And Pettigrew repeats his story that there's Union cavalry in Gettysburg. And Hill doesn't believe him. Pettigrew actually brings up an officer that Hill knows, and the officer will tell Hill, "Yes, we saw Union cavalry in Gettysburg." But neither Hill or Heath believe him. And Hill says, "I've just come from General Lee." He says there can't be any Union troops up here. They're still down in Maryland. They can't be up here. But at the same time, both Robert E. Lee and A.P. Hill are curious about what's here at Gettysburg. Now, both Hill and Heath owe their promotions to Robert E. Lee. Lee complained after the Battle of Chancellorsville just 2 months earlier that he would have won much greater victory at Chancellorsville if he had more aggressive division and corps commanders and brigade commanders. And he's promoted both Hill to corps command and Heath to division command because they're aggressive commanders. And both of those guys know they're promoted because of their aggressiveness. And he says, "I'd like to go to Gettysburg tomorrow and find out what's there and also collect some supplies there." And Heath is interested, rather A.P. Hill is interested, Lee is interested to find out what's in the front of the Confederate Army out there. They have been sent out, they're sending out orders still, do not bring on a big fight to Henry Heath. But Heath knows that he owes his promotion, and Hill knows he owes his promotion to being aggressive commanders. So that maybe that will lead them to maybe a little bit more aggressive than Lee wants them to do. And so around 7 o'clock, or actually 5 o'clock in the morning, Heath's division, about 6,600 men, will leave Cashtown. In front of his entire division, he puts his battalion of artillery, 22 cannons, out in front. He thinks he's only facing a local militia. These cannons out front will scare them away. He later on said that was a huge mistake. Buford could have easily captured those cannons without much of a fight at all, and Heath would have just had to be able to stand back and watch. Now Heath knows he owes his job to be an aggressive commander, and while he's on the march from Cashtown, he receives another note from Robert E. Lee, which says to ascertain what force is at Gettysburg, and if he found infantry opposed him, to report that fact immediately without forcing an engagement. But on the march up here, Heath will get another note from Lee, which will say to get those shoes even if he can encounter some resistance. So Lee is sending Heath a mixed message. Don't start a fight, but if you have to get those shoes, fight a little bit if you want them. So that's going to cause some problems from Harry Heath. So now they're coming towards Gettysburg. The artillery battalion is front. Out in front of them, it's a nice day out, not like today. Captain E.A. Moyers, the Fredericksburg artillery, who's riding out front, he would write later on, "The morning was lovely. A soft, fresh breeze rippled over ripe wheat fields," not like it's doing right now, "stretching on either side of the road. We moved forward leisurely, smoking and chatting as we rode along, not dreaming of the proximity of the enemy." So now they are riding towards Gettysburg. Meanwhile, back at Taneytown, Maryland, which is where the Union Army headquarters is, George Meade is back there. He's moved his army 40 miles in 2 days, but now he wants to slow the army down. He's meant to rest and relax, make slow marches up to Gettysburg, and actually he's not heading towards Gettysburg. He's already picked out a battlefield where he wants to fight. An area about 15 miles south of us, about along Big Pipe Creek, or Union Mills, Maryland. If you drive down Route 97, you'll run into Union Mills. You'll understand exactly why George Meade wanted to fight there. He's looking at a big creek in front of a ridge called Parr Ridge, which stretches for miles. And Meade plans to fight his battle there. He's got the Parr Ridge, got excellent observation, great fields of fire. He's got a water obstacle in front of him. Behind him, he's got good roads. So you can easily move troops back and forth behind Parr Ridge without them being seen by the enemy. And then you can move them a lot faster than the enemy coming up towards him will. And he's only 10 miles from a supply base at Westminster, Maryland. He's got good telegraphic communications with both Washington, D.C., Baltimore, and Harrisburg and Carlisle. It's a perfect place to fight a battle. If you see that place, you will wonder why George Meade didn't want. You would know why George Meade wanted to fight a battle down there. He hasn't seen Gettysburg at all. The only map he has of Adams County is the 1858 Adams County map. And if you looked at that map, you can buy it anywhere in town here, you'll see that the map shows farms, it shows towns and villages, it shows roads and farm lanes and streams, but it doesn't show terrain features. So Meade has no idea what this place looks like here. The only terrain feature that shows up on the Adams County map is Cemetery Hill. And Cemetery Hill on the map doesn't give any indication to its importance to the Union Army. So he hasn't seen the terrain out here, but he's seen his army up here. He wants to make contact with the Confederate Army. He wants Lee to concentrate his army because he wants them to be pulled back towards Big Pipe Creek plan. To do that, he's got this man, John Reynolds, commander of the Union 1st Corps. Reynolds will take command of the entire left wing of the Army. His own 1st Corps, now commanded by Abner Doubleday. 11th Corps commanded by Oliver Howard, and the 3rd Corps commanded by Dan Sickles. And Reynolds' orders are to force a small fight here to pull the Confederate Army back through Gettysburg, back towards Big Pipe Creek plan. And Reynolds will get those orders. He's been in correspondence with Lee all day long on June 30th and on June 29th. On June 29th, Buford will ride over to Reynolds and tell him, give him the latest information, tell him that Richard Ewell's Confederate 2nd Corps is coming down from Carlisle and also from York. But most Confederate Army is coming down the Chambersburg Pike. A.P. Hill's Corps is out at Cashtown. Longsheet's Corps is right behind him at Fayetteville. Now, Lee did not expect to fight a battle on July 1st. He did not expect to fight a battle on July 1st, definitely not here at Gettysburg. He thinks because the Union Army is, even though they're 40 miles away, usually when the Army moves, will only move 6 to 12 miles a day. So he figures a battle that will occur will probably not occur on July 1st at Gettysburg, maybe on July 3rd or 4th or 5th. That will give him plenty of time to get ready for Meade's army up here. So he was not expecting to fight a battle on July 1st. And we know he wasn't expecting to fight a battle on July 1st because on July 1st, 2/3 of his army is backed up in traffic here on the Chambersburg Pike. That'll have a big effect on what happens here on this battlefield for the rest of the battle as well. They're backed up in traffic out there. So they're coming to Gettysburg, but they're not here yet. Reynolds is out front. He's moving towards Gettysburg. On June 30th, he's at Marsh Creek, about 6 miles to the south of town. And actually, later on, after Doubleday will say that that was where Reynolds expected to fight a battle south of Gettysburg, not at Gettysburg. But Buford is out front. He sends messages back to Reynolds that Confederates are only 6 miles over in Cashtown. I expect Harry Heath to come with his division next day, 6,600 men. What he doesn't realize is also there's going to be a battalion of artillery coming, and also a 2nd Artillery Battalion is coming, and then Dorsey Pender's division with another 6,500 men coming as well. So almost 15,000 Confederate soldiers are going to be coming down the Chambersburg Pike on July 1st. Meanwhile, Buford is here. He knows the enemy is coming. He knows he can't stop them from getting into Gettysburg. What he wants to do is slow them down. He doesn't know anything about the Pipe Creek plan at all. He thinks the plan is to hold on to Gettysburg. There's no plan there at all. Actually, Buford has no orders to hold Gettysburg. Reynolds has no orders to hold Gettysburg. He's just pull them back through Gettysburg. Meade has no plans to fight here at all because he hasn't seen the terrain. So Buford is coming down the road out there. Actually, Buford is out there. He plans to slow the enemy down. What he's going to do, he's about 3 miles to the west of town, along Marsh Creek, about put out 2 and 3 soldier teams called vedettes. They're the early warning system. He's going to have a stronger skirmish line on her ridge, about just past where you see the trees out here. His main line will be back here on McPherson's Ridge. And what we're going to do now is we're going to cross, actually we're not going to cross over the road just yet. We're going to stay right here for a little while longer. His plan is to slow the enemy down. He doesn't know that there's no intention to fight here at Gettysburg at all. He wants to slow them down, buy time for Reynolds to come up. He knows how close Reynolds is to him. He's already sending word to Reynolds that they're going to be here the next morning. So the Confederates come down the road, come and get those shoes. And around 7:30 in the morning, a shot will ring out. Actually, Buford's signal officer will be up in the cupola up here at the seminary. He'll see them at 7 a.m. coming down the Chambersburg Pike, and he'll warn Buford that they're coming. Buford won't do anything for an hour, but around 7:30, a shot will ring out along Marsh Creek. First shot of the battle. Confederates expected this. Couple guys with shotguns, local militia, will scare them away. Now, one advantage Buford does have is all of his soldiers are armed with carbines. A carbine is short-range weapons, but it's a breech loaders. You can load and shoot a lot faster. You can fire 5 to 7 shots a minute. Now, it's a short-range weapon. Also, it's very inaccurate, so you're probably not going to hurt too many people. They do not have any repeater weapons out here. That's a myth that still keeps being told today. There are no Spencer repeater rifles out here with Buford's division. So, shot will ring out. Heath expected this. He throws out some skirmishers. They move forward. More shots are going to ring out. They're putting up a high rate of fire out there, but nobody's getting hurt. The skirmishers, the cavalry, they can lay down the grass and load and shoot, but they can't be seen. So they can't see who's initially shooting at them at first. But as they come forward, the skirmishers are falling back. They're running back to their horses, getting back, riding back some more yards, about a dozen or so yards, start shooting again. They'll be joined by more soldiers, eventually going to be falling back to her ridge out here. It's going to take Harry Heath an hour and a half to go 1 mile. He's been held up by 350 men. Now, he himself is not in that too much of a hurry to get to Gettysburg. He thinks it's just a local militia. We're going to scare them away. We'll be in Gettysburg by lunchtime, have a good lunch there. He can find a new hat that fits him actually better. But now, things are heating up out here on McPherson Ridge as the 3rd Infantry is coming forward to move up to our next stop and what talks about what happens next.
Hey, John, tell everybody who fired the first shot and
No,
what
I'm
state
not.
it came from.
I'm not John Popel.
It came from the great state
He's
of
already
Illinois.
turned it off. Last stop, I was hounded by this person to mention the first shot of the battle was fired by Lieutenant Marcellus Jones from where?
The great state of Illinois.
What regiment?
The 8th Illinois Cavalry.
Okay. That's it for Illinois. Shut up. So Buford's cavalry is being pressed back there. They've reached her ridge where you see that red roof out there, the unit that Confederates have. And sometime during all this, Heath has finally figured out he's facing Union cavalry out here. Now, the orders are not to start a fight, but he's running the Union cavalry. He thinks it's just a detachment. I'm going to get rid of them. But now you can see how many there are out here. So at this point, he should stop the battle. The orders are not to bring on a battle. He's already starting a battle out here. And so he's going to get rid of this cavalry. You can see what he's facing. He sees the main lines on McPherson Ridge here and back there. They're also in the woods out there. The plan is to drive them out and be in Gettysburg by lunchtime. He has a division of 6,600 men. He has 4 brigades. He doesn't want to put out the entire division. That would take too long, so he puts out 2 of his brigades. On the right side of the road, we have General James Archer, which commands a small Alabama brigade, Tennessee Alabama brigade, 3 Tennessee regiments, a regiment of Alabamans, a battalion of Alabamans. Archer's brigade are the most veteran soldiers in Heath's division. Archer is a veteran as well. He's actually smarter than Harry Heath is. And he tells Heath, I think we're walking to a trap here. And Heath doesn't believe him. But he says, we need to throw out some more people. You should throw out the entire division. Heath doesn't want to do that, so he throws out a 2nd brigade on the right side of the road, commanded by Brigadier Joseph Davis. Yeah, that's the next guy. Joe Davis has a brigade of North Carolinians, the 55th North Carolina, and 3 Mississippi regiments. His most veteran regiment, the 11th Mississippi, is back guarding wagon trains on July 1st, will not fight at all on July 1st. So he's got a brigade of rookies. On top of that, Joe Davis himself is a rookie. You may have noticed his last name is Davis. He got the job because he's a nephew of the President of the Confederacy. And so Davis is going to be on the right side of the road. He's got made 1,800 men. Archer has 1,200 men. They're facing 2 brigades of cavalry out there. They're going to push them out. And around 10 o'clock, it'll take them about 30 minutes to deploy out there. He doesn't want to put all his people out going forward, but he'll put them in battle lines on her ridge. They'll leave the other 2 brigades on her ridge about a mile away. Too far away to help if these 2 guys get into trouble out here. And they're starting to come forward now. And the woods are being slowed down out here. Confederates have lumbered 2 cannons on her ridge out there. They're firing in the woods for about 30 minutes before they step off. But they're not getting any response out there. Now the cavalry, infantry is stepping off into the woods out there. They're running the cavalry out there. But it's slow going because of the woods. On this side of the road, it's a little bit faster going because it was all open ground. These trees you see out here were not here in 1863. Now when Buford arrives here, he has a battery of 6 cannons under Lieutenant John Califf. This guy right here. He tells Califf, I want you to have a section of guns, 2 guns on this side of the road, another 2 sections on the other side of the road. Then 600 yards behind them, behind the woods out here, I want a 3rd section out there. Make it look like we have more cannons out here than we do because shots will be coming from different directions. And as cannons begin firing and these 2 brigades coming on the road, the cannons in the center right here are causing Davis' brigade to shift off to the left to get away from that cannon fire. Archer's troops are moving off to the right, so now there's going to be a gap about a 1/4 mile wide opening up to 2 brigades out here. So eventually going to be fighting 2 separate battles out here on July 1st. And his other 2 brigades are too far to help them out. He himself is also too far away to really command his division very well out here. And so now, Confederates are coming forward. Davis' brigade is coming back here. They're reaching the main line of Buford's cavalry right here on McPherson Ridge. And now Buford is in trouble. He's up, running up, coming to town. Across the fields now is not this guy, but Reynolds.
Coming back to Reynolds.
Yes. It's John Reynolds. I told you we were going to go back to him. John Reynolds rides up to Buford. He may or may not have been in the cupola. Aaron Jerome, the signal officer, sees Reynolds coming. He sends word down to Buford that Reynolds is coming, but they might not have met up in the cupola. But he meets Reynolds. Reynolds asks Buford what's happening. He says there's the devil to pay. I mean, we're in trouble. You need to hurry up and get the infantry up here. So Reynolds is riding back to the First Corps, which is coming up the Gettysburg Road from Marsh Creek. And he'll ride down through the town. He sees some Terry Hill while he's going through the town, and he rides down to his 1st Division line, which is commanded by this guy right here, James Wadsworth. James Wadsworth is the richest man in the entire state of New York. Commands a huge amount of property up there. He's a very wealthy man. His troops love him because he takes very good care of them. On the march to Gettysburg, 2 days earlier, it had been raining very hard. Did a hard march in the rain, and when they stopped for the night, Reynolds has all his staff officers go out and find all the farmers in the area. He buys up hay fields so his men can sleep on dry ground. And Wadsworth's division is coming up the Gettysburg Road, and Reynolds tells them there's no time for that. We're going to chop down the fences out here. We're going to cross at the Gettysburg Road at the Cavalry farm, coming across the fields toward Seminary Ridge, McPherson Ridge out here. So help is on the way, and now Buford is in trouble. We're going to cross over the road and talk about what happens next as the infantry arrives in the field. Okay, now Buford is in trouble back here. Confederate infantry is pushing the cavalry through the woods. Davis's brigade is pushing the cavalry back across the fields here, and now Union infantry is arriving on the field. The 2nd Brigade of the 1st Division, the 1st Corps, commanded by this man, Lysander Cutler. Lysander Cutler has a mixed brigade. He's got one very veteran regiment, the 14th Brooklyn, whose mom is on the other side of the railroad cut here. The 14th Brooklyn was known as the Red Leg Devils because they wore a French Army uniform which had red pants. And so they're called the Red Leg Devils by the Confederates out there. A very veteran regiment. But the other regiments don't have a lot of experience. One is the 76th New York, which will be right on the field first, be followed by the 56th Pennsylvania, and the 147th New York. A 4th regiment, the 95th New York, will be on the south side of the road with the 14th Brooklyn near the McPherson barn. The other regiments will cross the road right in these fields right behind you right here. And I want to ask you what you can see now in front of you. That's what they could see too. The ground out here was rolling terrain. There were wheat fields out here. The 76th New York will arrive to the north end of the field out here. And they can't see anything. Next regiment arrived at the 56th Pennsylvania. General Cutler is with them. They form into their battle line. And they look off to the right while the 76th Pennsylvania is still in their marching columns. And they see heads bobbing up above the wheat fields out there. And one of the soldiers asked General Cutler, is that the enemy? He looks through his binoculars and says, yes, it is. Before he says, command, they're too far away, don't fire. 56th Pennsylvania will fire the first volley on the Union side of the battle, but they won't hit anybody out there because they're too far away. But if they'd waited a little bit longer, they would have run into somebody where they could have hit, because only 100 yards in front of them in the wheat is now the 46th Mississippi. They'll fire a volley into the 56th Pennsylvania. General Cutler is on horse from his horse, and several men will drop to the ground. At the same time, the way to the north, as I said, Davis' brigade is drifting off to the right out here, and to the way to the north, the 56th North Carolina, about 700 men. And they're on the flank of the entire brigade out here. And the 76th North New York out here really can't see them coming, and they're taking 3 volleys from these North Carolinians out there before they'll shoot back. They think they're being shot at by friendly troops. Why they would think friendly troops are in front of them shooting back, we don't know. They'll wait 3 times to take 3 volleys from the enemy before they even realize that's the enemy out there. Now, the North Carolinians out there will greatly overlap the lines out here. At the same time, the 42nd Mississippi is firing the Pennsylvanians out here. They're both being driven back. And Cutler will realize he can't hold on much longer. to fight out here about 30 minutes, but they realize they're about to be overlapped out here, and Cutler will give the order to retreat. They're retreating back to Wills Woods right here. They'll all send orders to retreat to another regiment that's on this side of the field. You'll see their monument right over there, and that is the 147th New York. And we're going to cross over the road again, going in that direction, march down the railroad cut, and talk about these guys. We're going to be trapped out here, but we're going to buy some time from the Army out here. So cross back over the road again. Also, when Cutler was bringing on his 3 regiments to this side of the field, one of them got cut off at the McPherson barn. The reason why is because of this man right here, Captain James Hall, who's now replacing John Califf, because Califf is now out of ammunition. He's going back down to his limbers to refill his limber chest again. Califf commands the 2nd Maine Artillery, and he's been told by Reynolds, I need you to buy me some time. You need to focus all your fire on the Confederate artillery out here. You know, there's 22 cannons. They have 22 cannons. You only have 6. Draw all their fire to keep their fire off of the infantry out here. And he says, I'll have some support coming up to support you in a few minutes. And he does have support on the left side of the road from the 95th New York and the 14th Brooklyn out on the right side of the road. On this side of the road, actually the left side of the road out there, on this side of the road he doesn't see anybody. But there is support coming, and that is 147th New York, whose monument is back there on the north side of the railroad bridge out there. You may have seen as we were looking across the fields out there. And I was just asked a question, why is their monument out there when they were fighting right here? There's a good, easy answer for that. The Battlefield Commission, 1870s, 1880s, and 1890s, had rules about where monuments could go on the battlefield. The first rule is that a monument has to go on the battlefield where a unit goes into a line of battle. And the 147th New York doesn't go into a line of battle until right here, in this area, so their monument should be right here. But they had another rule as well. John Batchelder, who sat on the Monument Commission, liked straight lines. And they knew they were going to put in Reynolds Avenue up here one day. And the 76th New York, the 956 Pennsylvania is right there. And so that's why you see their monument is way back there, about 200 yards away from where it's supposed to be, right here. And how hard was it to get out here today? A little bit strenuous, so yeah. So people would never see the monument out here. So they are back at the McPherson barn. They're cut off by Hall's battery. They're told they're supposed to support Hall's battery. Hall's battery will take up the entire space here from the road to the railroad cut right here. So the 146th New York will come behind Hall's battery right here, cross over the railroad cut, which is not as nearly deep as it is now, to the other side of the railroad cut. And on the other side of the railroad cut, there's a fence out there that has vegetation going on. It's not there right now, but it started on the other side of the road out here. And so the other 2 regiments can't see the regiment that is over here. They can't see back there as well. So Hall's, the 147th New York will be over here, and Hall's battery will be right here, drawing the fire of all Confederate artillery out here. And Confederates are coming forward. And the railroad cut coming up through here is the 2nd Mississippi. They'll start coming on Hall's battery right here. He's focused out there instead of the infantry coming up. Some skirmishers are coming forward and shooting at his men out here. The 147th New York will turn a company and fire in them, drive them off, but then they'll come back again. And finally, Hall will turn 2 sections of his guns, 4 cannons in this direction, fire canister rounds into the railroad cut. Canister, in case you don't know, turns a cannon into a giant shotgun with balls about that big. And that will give some encouragement for the Mississippi's not to come up the railroad cut anymore. At least hold them off for a little while. But now, those guys back there are retreating. And General Wadsworth rather, has given the order for these guys over here to retreat as well. But when the order gets over here, it's given to the colonel of the regiment, Lieutenant Colonel Francis Miller. As soon as he receives the order, he's shot in the head and badly wounded. And his horse panics and goes riding off with the wounded colonel with him. So these guys out here on the other side of the railroad cut do not know they've been given the order to retreat. Meanwhile, Hall is taking a great deal of pressure from the infantry right here. So he decides, hey, there's no infantry on there. I was told he's going to be supported by infantry on the other side of the railroad cut. He can't see them because there's so much smoke on this side of the field. That's how bad it is. So now Hall is pulling out as well. So now these guys are by themselves out here. They're out there all by themselves. 386 men. They're facing about 1,000 Confederates out here. Confederates have stopped chasing those guys out here. Now they're turning on the 147th New York. 2nd Mississippi will be fighting their flank to the front. To their north would be the 42nd Mississippi, and coming in behind them is the 55th North Carolina. These guys are in a cauldron of fire right here. They're out here for minutes, trying to hang on, trying to figure out when are we going to get the order to retreat. Meanwhile, General Cutler is back there wondering why these guys haven't retreated yet. He sends a courier over to ride over to their regiment, says you guys need to get out here as quickly as you can. All they have is a narrow gap right here, maybe about 20 or 30 yards away, to retreat back across the fields. And they buy a lot of time, they're shooting troops back there to get reorganized out there. So they're now all falling back to Wills Woods out here. The Mississippians are coming forward. Meantime, on the other side of the road, it's a completely different story. We're going to cross back over the railroad cut cross over the roads right here one last time, and talk about the end of the fight here, and then we'll finish over at McPherson's Woods. So head back in that direction. Okay, I was just asked a question on the way over here. What type of time frame are we looking at? The cavalry fight starts at 7:30 in the morning, will end around 10 a.m. The fight here with the infantry will last about an hour. These guys over here, the 3 regiments from Cutler's Brigade, are in the retreat back to the woods back here. The 14th Brooklyn and the 95th New York on the other side of the woods. Coming up on the field now, Reynolds is bringing his best brigade, the 1st Brigade, the 1st Division, the 1st Corps, the famous Iron Brigade. Soldiers from Indiana, Wisconsin, and Michigan. These are the best of the Union Army, about 1,900 men. They'll fight here all day on July 1st. They'll come here with 1,900 men on July 1st. When they leave this field on July 4th, July 5th rather, they'll have about 1,100 men left. So they're coming up across the fields here. Reynolds is leading them forward. Archer's Brigade is just now pushing the cavalry out of the woods in McPherson's Woods over here. And as they're coming forward, the Iron Brigade is coming across the fields. The first in line is the 2nd Wisconsin. And these guys are such good soldiers, such disciplined soldiers, they're loading as they're running across the fields. That's hard to do, to load a single shot muzzle-loading musket as you're running across the fields in formations. And the 2nd Wisconsin will come up just as some of the Tennessee regiments are coming out of the woods here. And they'll see the 2nd Wisconsin off to their left. So they'll turn their lines so they're facing towards the 2nd Wisconsin. They'll fire a volley to the 2nd Wisconsin, and half the 2nd Wisconsin will go down. Reynolds is riding up with them. He turns around to see where the 2nd Regiment is, the 7th Wisconsin. And as he turns around, he's struck in the back of the head by a bullet and immediately killed. The most senior general on the Union side would be killed during the battle. But now the rest of the Iron Brigade is coming up. The 7th Wisconsin will come up, and the 19th New York and the 24th Michigan would come up. And now the Confederates over there, no, they're no longer facing militia. One soldier says, that ain't militia, that's them black hat fellas again. They know they're in trouble. And the Iron Brigade will slam into them. The 24th Michigan, the largest regiment in the Iron Brigade, will overlap Archer's lines. The entire Tennessee Alabama Brigade, Archer's Brigade, realizes they are about to be trapped. They'll start running back through the woods towards the safety of Her Ridge, about a mile away. And dozens of men will surrender. The Iron Brigade will cross over Willoughby Run. They'll encircle Archer, capture him. First Confederate general be captured since Lee's taking command of the army to take another 200 prisoners, and Archer's brigade is wrecked. And all he can do is stand back on Her Ridge and watch all this happen. But now there's a crisis, because now the Iron Brigade is on the other side of the Willoughby Run, and Davis' brigade is coming over here. They know if they cross the road over here, they're going to trap the Iron Brigade in the woods between Willoughby Run and all those Confederates out on Her Ridge out there. When the Iron Brigade went to attack, left them behind one regiment. The one regiment, the 6th Wisconsin, the only guy I don't have today, commanded by Colonel Rufus Dawes. Rufus Dawes is 24 years old. If he lives to 4th of July, he'll turn 25. And Dawes sees what's happening out here. He's been pulled out of the line by now, since Reynolds was killed by Abner Doubleday, who did not invent the game of baseball. Will have probably the best day of his Army career here on July 1st. Doubleday pulls him out of the line, says, we're going to hold you in reserve. But now these guys are coming across the fields out here, and they can see what's happening on the other side of the road. Dawes will order his men to charge towards the fence line out here on the Chambersburg Pike. As they're coming across the fields, Dawes' horse is hit by a bullet, and the horse drops to the ground. Dawes slams to the ground, gets up and says, I'm all right, boys. And the men cheer, and they follow him up to the road. They start firing into Davis's brigade right here, who quickly realizes they are in trouble out here. There's people over there shooting at them. At the same time, 95th New York move up to the road as well, and the 14th Brooklyn will move up to the road as well and start firing into Davis's brigade out here. And as they're shooting at these men, Mickey Sullivan, a private in the 6th Wisconsin, says, we're shooting at them, we're dropping the Rebs out here, left and right, when suddenly they disappeared as if they were swallowed in by the earth. They're not swallowed in by the earth. They jumped into the railroad cut here. The railroad had come to the Gettysburg in 1858. Their plans were on the railroad 25 miles all the way back to Chambersburg, but the railroad cut was dug, but they didn't lay tracks in for another 20 years. Now the railroad cut was not as deep as it is now. It's more like it is right here, where it's only 2 to 4 feet. A couple places it was 8 to 10 feet. Confederates, as far as I know, did not have any 10-foot tall Confederate soldiers out there. They're jumping the railroad cut. They're protected from the fire coming from the road out here. Now these guys have a ready-made trench right here to shoot at the enemy out here. And Dawes' men, all they have is the fence right here. He orders men to climb over the fence to the other side of the fence and start shooting at these guys out here. But his men are being shot down along the road out here. And Dawes realizes he's got 3 choices. He can either run away, let the Army Brigade be trapped in the woods out here, he can stay at the fence and have his men slaughtered out here, he can do something else. He runs over to his left, the 95th New York, finds the major commanding the regiment, Major Edward Pye. He says, Major, we must charge them. And Pye agrees, and Dawes runs back to his men, orders them to start to climb the fence. They'll climb the fences and they'll start charging towards the railroad cut here. The other 2 regiments will start moving about 3 or 4 minutes later. Dawes is out front with his men running forward. His color bearers keep being shot down. Dawes will pick up the flag himself and carry it for a short time before another man will pick it up from him. They'll get about halfway to maybe about 50 yards from the railroad cut right here. And Dawes will write later on that a sheet of flame will come from the railroad cut and half of his men will go down. They're down. But now Dawes and his men, along with the other 2 regiments over here, are staying over the railroad cut. Every one of them have loaded muskets. These guys have empty muskets down here. There's some hand-to-hand fighting down here, but Dawes realizes, Confederates don't realize that they are actually outnumber all the Union troops on this side of the field. He's yelling out to them to throw down their muskets and to surrender. Who's in charge here? And finally, the major of the regiment will come forward, hand a sword over to Dawes, and the fight will end over here around 11 o'clock. So the infantry fight lasts about an hour. The time the infantry arrives on the field, the time they charge the railroad cut is made, it's about 1 hour. And at this point, the Battle of Gettysburg is over. It's over. It's over. Neither general's here yet. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to cross back over the road to our last stop by the trees. There's going to be some shade if the sun comes back out. Talk about what happens next. Okay, so it's now 11 a.m. and the Battle of Gettysburg should be over. Should be over. Neither Army commander is on the battlefield yet. Lee is riding up from Cashtown. Won't arrive on the battlefield until about 1:30. Has some questions for Harry Heath about what's going on here. Why has he started a battle here at Gettysburg? George Meade is back at Taneytown, Maryland, about 17 miles away. He gets a message that John Reynolds has been killed. And he knows that Abner Doubleday is in charge. He doesn't trust Doubleday, or the person who's to replace Doubleday, Oliver Howard. And so he's not sure what to do. Fortunately, he does have somebody that he does trust nearby. That is Winfield Scott Hancock. And so he briefs Hancock for what he wants, gives Hancock some maps, sends Hancock to Gettysburg to tell him, take charge of what's happening there, you're going to make the decision whether we stay here and fight. Before even Hancock has gotten back, Meade's already made the decision to fight here. But he doesn't want to leave Taneytown just yet, because if he does, he could be caught up in a retreat of his army retreating from Gettysburg, and if that happens to him, he'll lose contact with the rest of his army. At Taneytown, he's centrally located to all this corps out there. This will happen a couple months later at Chickamauga, where the Army commander of the Army of the Cumberland, the Union Army commander out there, William Rosecrans, will be caught up in a retreat back to Chattanooga. He loses contact with his army on the battlefield at Chickamauga. But Meade doesn't want to do that, so he's going to stay at Taneytown till about 10 or 11 o'clock at night before he comes up to Gettysburg. Lee's orders are not to start a fight here at Gettysburg, but want to start it anyway. Had A.P. Hill and Henry Heath listened to Johnston Pettigrew, all of this could have been avoided. All of it could have been avoided. There would not have been a battle here at Gettysburg. Once he discovers he's facing Union cavalry, that should have been the end of it right there. But instead he wants to push the issue a little bit farther. He's been encouraged by Robert E. Lee. Once the Union Infantry shows up, though, it's already too late for Heath. He's going to get 2 of his brigades wrecked out here. In the afternoon, he'll wreck 2 other brigades of his division out here, and they'll suffer a large number of casualties. His division will participate in Pickett's charge on July 3rd. When it participates in Pickett's charge on July 3rd, Heath's division has already lost Harry Heath, who's been wounded on July 1st in the afternoon. They've lost James Archer, senior brigade commander, who was captured by the Iron Brigade that morning. He's lost 16 colonels, lieutenant colonels, and major commander regiments and brigades out here. He's also lost 46% of his division on July 1st. And they're going to participate in Pickett's charge on July 3rd. These guys have no chance to recover from what's happened to them. In the afternoon, Dorsey Pender's division will come up, finally break the line on Seminary Ridge out here, but Pender himself will suffer 20% casualties, and Pender himself will be mortally wounded. He'll die about a couple of weeks later. And both of those divisions will participate in Pickett's charge on July 3rd. They should have never been in that fight out there on July 3rd. They've had no chance to recover what's happened to them. Once Heath ran in the Union Infantry, though, as I said, it was too late. On the Union side, Buford has no orders to stay here. He doesn't know about the Big Pipe Creek plan. There are no orders to hold Gettysburg. He could even easily fallen back to join Reynolds at Marsh Creek. Reynolds himself has no orders to hold Gettysburg. When he gets here, sees Cemetery Hill, sends a message to Meade down at Tawny Town. I'll barricade the streets of Gettysburg if I have to. So Reynolds, in a way, is sort of making the decision to fight here for George Meade, even though Reynolds will be dead by the time that decision gets back to Meade. Reynolds could have decided to fight here on McPherson Ridge, or he could have run away back to Marsh Creek. And there is some evidence that Reynolds did expect to fight at Marsh Creek on July 1st, not here at Gettysburg at all, and to fall back to Emmitsburg. So this was a battle that should not have been remembered by anybody. It ends around 11 o'clock in the morning, just a few thousand soldiers on both sides, fighting back and forth. Nobody should remember this today. But now things are spinning out of control. There's going to be a lull of about an hour. Be some random skirmishing going on both sides, a few artillery shots being shot back and forth, but there's no fighting going on for about the next hour and a half. But now more troops arrive on the battlefield on both sides. About another hour, this battle will spin out of control. By the time it ends, this battle that nobody should remember at all will end up becoming the 3 bloodiest days in fought on the North American continent. So I want to thank you for coming out here this morning. I was sorry about the feedback of the microphone. Thank you for coming out to Gettysburg. Drink some water. Drink some water. Thanks a lot. You're welcome.